Well, I'm working on a Scag Turf Tiger 61 and it's having some issues. I'm going to insert a clip right now of what it's doing. Okay, so you can see that when we engage the blades or the PTO, the tractor shuts off. Now I have went ahead and removed the deck belt and checked all the pulleys. Everything seems good up there. There's no binding, there's no extra tension. I also came to the back of the machine, had it jacked up. I pulled the belt off the rear. I messed with the linkage between the gearbox and the spindle on the back. I don't see any binding, nothing weird going on, no bearings going out, so no extra resistance in the system. So this is a bit of a head scratcher. Electrical issues may be a problem, bad connection at a battery, bad connection on a solenoid. Also could have a coil going bad, so I'm going to systematically remove coil wires from each side, see if that kills the engine. I might be running on one cylinder. You won't be able to read it, it's still barely there, but this engine is model number CH25S. There's our problem right there. Very easy diagnosis. This cylinder is dead. For whatever reason, the tractor's not even running on this cylinder. I installed a spark tester in line. So the spark tester plugs into the spark plug wire, and then the other end you clamp to the frame, or you can clamp it right to the end of the spark plug. There is an adjustable gap between the end of that brass tip and this steel screw, so you can turn this knob and adjust that gap and make it larger or smaller. We're going to go with a pretty small gap here. I'm going to go ahead and crank the machine up, and we're going to see if we're even getting spark. Alright guys, so here's where we're at. I've been fighting this thing. You got to take the oil cooler loose. There's a couple of bolts right here you got to take off. I popped the air filter housing up just to give me some room to wiggle the plastic on the front. There's bolts down through here. There's one down underneath there. And the front cover will still not come off of here. I actually have to remove the screen off the front as well, just to give me some room to work. This front cover is not coming out of there without removing the whole engine. So I don't want to take the whole engine out. And so I just kind of pry the cover forward. I should be able to have enough room to barely squeeze my hands in here. And the first thing I noticed when I popped this cover forward was little pieces of fuzz and fur and old crunchy mouse. And I don't know if you can see it or not. Take my word for it. These wires are chewed a little bit. So it might not be a bad coil. It might be shorted wires. So I'm going to investigate this a little further. Alright, so there's two wires that are chewed up in here. You can see this is the yellow one. You see he's chewed the plastic completely off of it. I'm hoping that maybe that wire was just laying up against this manifold and grounding itself out. And also the brown wire down here, I haven't pulled that off of the coil yet, but it's also chewed. All right, so we're looking at the coil down in there. I did not remove it. I got online and found some resistance values for Kohler coils, and I'm not able to verify that this part number jives with those resistance values, but because I can't figure out exactly what this part number is without doing a tremendous amount of research, and I'm out in the shop, I'm trying to get this job done. So when I did those tests, this coil is coming in good. So I'm gonna go on the assumption that that coil is good and that those chewed wires were shorting out. You can see what I did to the wires here. Rather than cutting completely off the end, I just put a butt connector in the middle here. I cut the bad part out of the middle, put some shrink tubing, a butt connector with dielectric grease on it. I did that same thing to both wires. So I ended up only having to shorten these wires up. There's the yellow one. Only had to shorten that one up maybe an inch, and the brown one maybe 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. So there was enough extra wire. I went ahead and cleaned out. I sprayed some electronic cleaner up inside there to clean that terminal out, and then I put dielectric grease in it. I got down in there with some sandpaper and cleaned up those ends as best I can. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this back together, fight to get all these stupid screws back in, and cross my fingers. Okay, I think we're all back together. I have not tried it yet. In fact, I haven't cranked it at all yet. So let's see what happens here. Well, that's unfortunate. Well, after a lot of research and a trip to my local dealer, this is the part number for the coil that I bought. You can get them cheaper online, but the reviews online are some of them are really bad reviews, and I wanted to just go ahead and get it from the dealer. I think I paid 85 bucks. You can get this same part on Amazon for like 15 or 18. I know you can get them on eBay for 15. 24 584 36S. I know it also has a lot of other part numbers. This is the most recent part number, but some of the old part numbers were like 24 584 03, and there was just a bunch of them. But anyhow, it's this coil. It's got the two plugs on it, and I was able to get the old one off. So here's the old one next to the new one to give you an idea of the difference in size. So like I say, they are completely different sized, but this dealer actually sold this mower new and was able to look up the information, and they are 100% confident that, you know, this is the coil for that machine. And in fact, I had them go ahead and ohm this out to make sure that the coil is good. Now the guy told me, I was talking to one of the techs, sounded like sort of a senior tech, based on what he was saying and sort of his level of confidence with it. He told me to go ahead and just to verify that it is indeed this coil. He said sometimes with this DSAI, Digital Spark Advanced Ignition, that DSAI is a real crappy, it was a real crappy thing. This mower, I just found out today, was purchased back in 1998, so this thing is 25 years old. I know Terrell Fix has all done a video or two on this DSAI and how Kohler made a kit to remove that because it's such a crappy ignition system. So the guy told me that part of that is that sometimes you're not getting spark on this cylinder, but it's actually the coil on the other side that's bad. So I don't understand that, and I'm not going to pretend to, but he told me to go home, unplug the larger spade terminal. He said that should be your kill wire. He said unplug the larger spade on both sides and, you know, have your plugs out and then crank the motor and see if you're getting spark, and you know, that would sort of eliminate that crisscross thing. Well, when I unplugged the kill wire on both sides, I wasn't getting spark from either of them. So I went ahead and unplugged both wires from both sides, and I wasn't getting spark on anything again. So I went ahead and plugged in all the spade terminals again, and you know, of course, that side's sparking and this side is not. So I tried the old spark plug, I tried the new spark plug. If the coil is not working on this side, I'm gonna have to swap it to the other side in case. I mean, I'm kind of taking a chance here. He said there's a lot of them that you'll run into where it looks like the coil's bad on this side because it's not getting spark, but in fact, it's the coil on the other side. So this is the same part number for both sides. So if it don't fix my problem on this side, I'm gonna have to try to install that coil on that side. And without removing this engine, I think I can get to this one. I got the old one off reasonably well. It's going to be a bear to get this one back on, but I think I can do it. If I got to do it on that side, I don't think I'll be able to do it. So if you guys are trying to, if you're fighting an engine without removing the engine, if you're trying to fight this cover, because this sucker is, it's the way it tucks up under there, you can't get it off for this cross member on the frame. So you'll be able to probably be able to do this side, but this side over here, I hope I don't have to. So I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall that coil. He did make it a point. He said, you know, when you set the air gap between the coil and the flywheel, he said, use a business card. I said, well, isn't it supposed to be 10,000? So I was just planning on using a feeler gauge. He's like, nope, just go ahead and use a business card. That's what we do. Well, okay. So anyhow, I'm gonna go ahead and get that installed and get back. Well, we got it all back together, and before I put that front cover on, I did go ahead and I bolted the coil up. I did not use the business card. I used a 10,000 feeler gauge. I mic'd out that business card that the guy gave me. It was like 13.5, 14 thou, and I'm pretty sure the book calls for something like 8 to 12. So I used a 10 thou feeler gauge, set the air gap, and I went ahead and plugged it all back together and then hit the key, and sure enough, I'm getting spark on both sides. So let's see if the blade will engage and run now. That was the reason I went through all this. All right, well, there you go, guys. If you got a blade that wants to kill the engine, when you engage it, that's the fix. At least that was the fix for me. I hope I helped you with this one. If I did, click that thumbs up button. If you want to see more videos of me working on stuff out here in the garage, click the subscribe button. And until the next time, keep on tinkering.